Greetings, adventurers. This is DM Curt, and let's talk about monsters that are for D&D and similar games, but have not made it into 5e that I find interesting. So, I was tempted to talk about the Blindheim, which came out of Fiend Folio, first edition D&D. What it was basically a big frog, and it had the ability to shoot out blinding beams of light and, well, blind you temporarily. And then you are attacked by a giant frog. Okay. I can see where this inspiration for this creature would have come from. If you've ever been out in the dark with a flashlight and shined it on a frog and the light kind of reflects back at you a little bit. Okay. And then kind of cross that with the, if you've ever seen, and if you haven't seen this, what's going on with you? A car coming at you at night with their headlights on. Okay, if it was just more intense, what would that be like? Ooh, that'd be a kind of cool critter to throw in a D&D game. And that's probably where the inspiration for that monster came from. But I've never really used that monster in any of my games. I mean, I've flipped past it in Fiend Folio 100 times, but, never really used it. I think if we're on the letter B, not beholders or bugbears, which have made it into 5e, I think the Bootgrabber looks pretty interesting. Now this is from Creature Codex by Kobold Press. And what it is, it's a small slime. It's just sitting there, and there could be numbers of them in an area. Every little puddle in the corridor is a separate little slime. And if you walk past this slime, it reaches up like a mimic and grabs your leg. You'll have an opposed grapple check, or however you want to adjudicate that. And these creatures, they're weak. When it comes to attacks, they don't do a lot of damage. And the only purpose for a creature like that would be to live in a symbiotic relationship with a much tougher creature. Especially a floating one like a beholder or a grell. So these things hinder the adventurers by hindering their movement while the big creature is attacking them. And then once the big creature has killed all the adventurers, the little slimes, they go over there and they nibble at the corpses like scavengers. Basically, they scavenge. Okay. What you could do with these, have them litter the floor of a beholder's lair or a grell's lair, or basically anything too large for the little slimes to grab onto. Maybe a dragon, whatever. It'd be kind of unfortunate for the PCs if they can't maneuver around while the dragon is attacking them. You could also have intelligent, vicious little creatures like Darrow scoop these things up and put them in a glass bottles. And now you have the web spell, but in a grenade form for your martial characters rather than your magic ones. They pick up their glass jar full of Bootgrabber, they throw it at the PC, and you could roll a hit location. If it's over an arm, the arm gets pinned against the torso, and now you can't use one of your weapons. If it's your legs, they kind of reach out and they land on the legs, they go, now your legs are together, and maybe you'll fall over. Maybe you won't, but you're not running. Maybe it's over your head, now you're blinded, because this thing is, you gotta pull this big thing off your face, and you can't do that with weapons in your hand. So you have to drop your weapons and pull this thing off. You could do suffocation rolls, blindness, whatever. That's cool. And here we have an example of sort of a partnership situation where the Bootgrabber is doing the Darrow's work. And, once the Darrow have stabbed you with their pointy little spears, maybe they'll try to put the oozes back into new bottles, whatever. But what I've also found is the Cobbleswarm. Now this is one I've used a couple times, and I enjoyed using it. So the Cobbleswarm It doesn't start with a B. We're off the letter B, but Cobbleswarm is related to the Bootgrabber in a way that it would work as a creature in a symbiotic relationship with another creature, creating an environmental hazard for the larger creature to more easily get prey, and then they both share that prey. So the Cobbleswarm is a swarm of small insects, and these insects, they look like rocks, okay? Maybe fist-sized rocks, maybe a little bigger. You go into an area, and these rocks, which aren't rocks, just start scuttling around. And if you have small to medium-sized pets, then you know that, well, having things underfoot is a hazard. And these rocks try to trip you. These little scuttling little creatures try to trip you. Also, it's in Codex, Creature Codex by Kobold Press. Well, they're going to force you to do I believe it's like a DC 13 dex check or fall down. You fall down. They have little poisonous stingers. They do like a D4 damage. It's not poison, but it's like piercing damage, but whatever. Okay. So they're poking you with their little stingers, and they're scuttling around, and as a bonus action, they can actually, all of them get under you and then move you 10 feet in the direction of wherever. Towards the larger creature they're working in concert with, or towards a cliff or pit, because they have a rudimentary understanding of cliffs and pits and such. I would change the poisonous stinger to more of a pinchers or jaws. So it's just kind of a rock, and it lifts up, and underneath the shell, you got the feet and the little pinchers. I mean, that's if I were to redesign that creature. I've used it a couple of times. So the last time I used it, they were in a cavern of Grell. So the PCs were getting hindered and tripped and knocked prone. Knocking the characters prone in 5e doesn't do that much. It takes away about half their movement rate when they stand up and start moving. It doesn't help unless somebody else attacks before you've had a chance to get back up. And depending on where you are in the initiative round with the other creatures, it might not do a lot. But it is kind of fun to have the people going, what? Okay, now we have these two different problems. Oh no. The first time I used these creatures, these Cobbleswarm little bugs, was in an adventure where they were in a corridor in a building that was built into the side of a cliff, and the little creatures were trying to push the fallen adventurers, because remember, if they're prone, they can, as a bonus action, move you about 10 feet towards the edge of the cliff where the wall had broken open, and there's open cliff in this room. I had a carrion crawler crawling around on the ceiling, attacking the PCs from above. Great times were had. The PCs killed the carrion crawler, which was the larger, more threatening thing. And we just happened to have a paladin who very conscientiously carried a shovel. Gravedigger Jimmy, as he called himself, always had his shovel. He actually used Divine Smite through it once and changed the course of a battle by knocking a necromancer off of the back of a undead animate monster, owlbear. And with the necromancer dead, a certain curse couldn't happen, and yada yada yada. It was just, but the Cobbleswarm fight, he had his shovel, the carrion crawler's dead, scoop, fling, scoop, fling, and he was scooping these bugs out of the room, down into the crevasse, and he kept his feet firmly planted so he wouldn't get swept away. And we adjudicated that with, okay, the big critter's dead, and the little critters are being dealt with. I don't think we need to roll the last couple of rolls on this. You've got a solution. Perfect. Let's carry on. But that's today's video. Small creatures that cause a little bit of havoc in the service of a larger one, the Cobbleswarm and the Bootgrabber. Now, if you don't have Creature Codex by Kobold Press, you can adjudicate these creatures by making up your own stats from that idea. You know, it sounds like just a couple of hit dice, one or two at the most. And however your particular edition handles dexterity saves, grappling checks, go for it. Anyway, those creatures are kind of my favorites for the B and the C category. For creatures that are kind of cool, kind of interesting, and they're not in the 5e Monster Manual. Thanks. Please like and subscribe. Of course. Dave Curt, out.